Hey, everybody. How y'all doing today? Hey, how's everybody doing? I'm finally doing another cooking video. Today, I'm doing some country collard greens. So, y'all want to learn how to cook some country collard greens? I'm gonna show you how I fix mine. Um, I got some help with me today. I got my sous chef with me. Tell her hey, Chloe.
Hello.
I have some help today. Tell them what you're doing. What are you doing? What are you gonna help me with today?
I want to help cook country collard greens.
Okay, what else are we cooking today?
We're also cooking a pound cake.
That's right. That's another video. We're gonna do the pound cake on another video. But I've got my sous chef here. She's helping me out. My assistant. She told me that I was her assistant, but I'm gonna flip it. She's my assistant, right, Chloe? Okay, great. Good afternoon to everybody. It's Friday afternoon. It's a little cold outside, so I just decided to come on and log on. And I've been procrastinating about doing my cooking videos. You know, I'm usually in the kitchen on the weekends. Every weekend, I'm either baking a cake, I'm cooking some type of meal, or doing something. So I just wanted to share my recipe with you on how I do it. Now I want to give y'all lambs on their clothes. Just want to give y'all a heads up. This is not the healthy recipe. This is definitely not the healthy recipe. Typically, I use smoked turkey when I'm doing my greens. But today we're using ham hocks. That's why I call them country collard greens. I'm using ham hocks today. It's not healthy at all, but every now and then, I like some ham hocks, some pork. I'm trying to pull away from the pork, but just something about that pork that makes that food taste just a little bit better than smoked turkey's not bad, but there's something about that pork. But one thing that I do also, just to give y'all a heads up, I'm going to show y'all how I put my recipe, put my pot together. Typically, once I put my pot together, I let it cook for maybe an hour and a half, depending on how tender you want your greens. Some people like crunchy greens, some people like them tender. For me, it really doesn't even matter. It just depends on how much time I have. So we're going to go ahead and get started. For those of you that have just joined us, good afternoon. Hello to everyone. We're doing country collard greens, amen, using smoked ham hocks. And this is really going to be really quick. I don't think it's going to take maybe 10, 15 minutes to do this. It's going to slow us down a little bit because we're doing the video. But otherwise, just in your kitchen, outside of, cleaning and cutting your greens, it takes about maybe 10, 15 minutes to prepare your pot. And the one thing that I have learned about greens is when you get your base, I call it my base or my roux for my pot. Once you get that perfected, it's gonna go smoothly. Now, like I was telling everybody, just a disclaimer, this is not a healthy recipe for those of you that may be cutting back on fat, cutting back on pork, things like this. This is definitely not a healthy recipe. I try not to cook my greens like this all the time, but every now and then I treat myself. So we're going to start off with some world famous Crisco. Now the thing about me is when I cook, I don't um, I don't measure. A lot of times I cook based off, what looks right and what feels right. I don't do a lot of measuring, but I'm gonna try to give y'all some measurements today. So what we're gonna do, and depending on how many greens you're cooking, you want to make sure your pot is big enough, because even though the greens are gonna shrink down, you're not gonna have as many. They're gonna shrink down. But starting off, you don't want your pot to overboil. So I typically use my big pot when I'm doing my greens, because today I've got about 6 bunches of greens. So I want to make sure that when I put all of my greens in my pot doesn't overboil. So we're going to start out, like I said before, I don't do a lot of measurements, so I'm going to try to give y'all some measurements. Start off with, looks like about 3 to 4 tablespoons of Crisco. You're going to melt that in your pot. And what I'm going to do now is saute the vegetables. I use, now you can use any type of vegetables that you want to use. I use bell pepper, I use onions, and I use garlic. I use white onions, I use yellow onions, I use red onions, I use green onions, scallops. I typically use garlic, but today I'm using green bell peppers. And I'm using white onions, and I had one green onion left over from another recipe that we're going to use up. And this is about a cup serving. So use about a cup of onions, and you can use as much as you want. Like Tabitha Brown says, it's your business. For those of you that are just joining us, TT Angel on there, she said, "Hey, Chloe."
Hello.
We're cooking country collard greens. I've got about 3 tablespoons of Crisco. Use a cup of onions, a cup of bell pepper. I'm using maybe a couple cloves of garlic. Now I use I also buy the squeezable garlic. You can use, I like using fresh, but for those of you that don't want to cut up the garlic or the onions or the bell peppers, you can buy the seasoned blend. But I just love the process of actually cutting up the vegetables. So this is probably about maybe 2-3 cloves of garlic. You can use however much you want. It's your business. And so what we're going to do is we're going to let that saute. Until your vegetables get soft. Once that gets going, now just give you some info. I've already cut and cleaned my greens. They're soaking in the sink. I've already boiled my ham hocks. Typically, I'll boil my ham hocks maybe 30-45 minutes before I put them in the pot with my greens. Now, if you're like me and you like to eat the ham hocks, because typically when I do a pot of greens, I won't cook any of the meat if I'm using ham hocks. So I cook something like today I'm doing my collard greens with ham hocks. I'm doing some sweet potatoes. I'm doing some cornbread. So I'll use my ham hock as my meat. Now, if you're going to use the ham hock as your meat, you may want to cook it a little bit longer, because it doesn't take long for the greens to cook. But if you're going to just use your ham hocks for seasoning, I boil them for about 30 minutes if I'm just using it for seasoning. But I boil it for about 45 minutes to an hour if I'm going to eat the ham hocks with my greens. And the reason, and the thing about it is, a lot of people just will dump their ham hocks in the pot, with the greens and the water. I don't do that. Reason being, I have smoked ham hocks, and typically there's a lot of residue on the ham hocks because of the smoking process. So I'll boil my ham hocks just to rinse that smoke. You won't lose the taste of the smoke because the smoke has gone through the meat, but it takes off the fat and the residue. Makes it a little bit healthier. Not as healthy as smoked turkey, but it's a little bit healthier when you boil it and you don't use that water from your ham hocks. Hey everybody, we're cooking country collard greens. So I've got my Crisco, I've got my green onions, I've got my white onions, and I've got my bell pepper, and I've got my garlic that's sauteing in the pot. And you want to cook that till the onions are translucent, until you can see through them. Right, Chloe? Okay. All right. So now, what I typically do now, and the thing about it is, one thing that I've learned from cooking greens for so many years is that when you get your roux and your base seasoned, I cook my greens just like I cook my gumbo. I make a roux or a base, and then I add my water and my greens, and I don't season it anymore after that. So the key that I've learned from cooking greens is that when you get your roux down, you pretty much mastered the dish. Now, what I'm going to do now on my vegetables and my Crisco, I'm going to start building my seasonings. Now, I use a lot of seasonings, but I don't use a lot of each seasoning. I use just a sprinkle of the seasoning, because what I also use, this is Better Than Bouillon. This is a roasted chicken base. This is what I use. I don't use a whole lot of seasoning, and it does have salt in it. Now, typically, I'll use either one or the other. I'll either use the Better Than Bouillon, the chicken base, or I'll use the, now you can find this at Walmart, the Orrington Farms broth base and seasoning. Now, this right here is a powder. This broth base and seasoning, it's a powder. Let me show it to you real quick. This one is in a powder form. And this Better Than Bouillon, this is like a paste. You can use one or the other depending on what mood I'm in. I'll use both. So I'm gonna start building my roux or my base for my pot. This is the most important part of the process. Building your pot, building your base. So what I'm gonna use also, crushed red pepper. Depending on how spicy you like it, put as much as you want to put in it. Typically, me and the boys, we eat greens. Chloe and Mom don't eat a lot of greens. Me, Chase, and Chandler, we typically, we eat most of the greens in the house, and they don't mind it being spicy. Shayla doesn't like spicy, so if she's gonna eat some, I typically don't put a whole lot of crushed red pepper. But if who's sitting here? You don't like spicy? Okay. So you got your crushed red pepper. I got parsley flakes. Now, like I told y'all before, I don't do any measuring. I've learned how to cook by looking at it and how it feels when I'm using it. If I had to guess, I would say maybe a teaspoon of parsley flakes. Use just a little dab of accent. Doesn't take a whole lot. Don't put a whole lot, because I'm using a lot of different seasonings for the flavor. So, and a lot of these seasonings have salt, so you don't want to over salt your base or your pot. I use paprika. You can either use regular or smoked. Doesn't matter. I say maybe half teaspoon. Believe it or not, I use cumin. Now this is organic cumin, ground cumin that I use. Just a little dab, not a whole lot. Because you're building your pot. I use thyme, the dry thyme, and this is organic. Maybe a quarter of a teaspoon. Use a little bit of onion powder. Not a whole lot. Black pepper. Now we've already used the crushed red pepper, so you don't use a lot of black pepper. Got to have the seasoning salt. Lowry seasoning salt, gotta have it. Not a whole lot. Maybe a half teaspoon. And I also use Creole seasoning, Tony's Saffron's Creole seasoning. Just a little bit. You're gonna let that cook down with the vegetables. And what that's doing, I call it seasoning my pot. Step down for a second before we use. Let me show y'all what that looks like. I call that seasoning my pot. See, there's not a whole lot in there. But it's cooking along with the vegetables. Then I want to add my chicken base. Maybe a tablespoon of the chicken base. And I use about a tablespoon of the, so I got Slap Your Mama. Now, let me tell you about Slap Your Mama, mother-in-law. I use about a tablespoon of the powdered chicken base, not a whole lot. Because you got to remember, we just added quite a bit of seasoning, and most of these seasonings that I use, it has salt. God, Mama, it's going to be ready probably about a couple hours, because I'm going to cook some other stuff with it. Now, let me tell y'all, I do, she mentioned it. Now, where is it? I know I got some up in here somewhere. And I know I'm not out. There we go. There we go. There we go. I do put it on everything, Angel. Slap Your Mama. Now, I love Slap Your Mama. I put it on everything, but for me, I put it on after my greens are done. When I fix my plate, I sprinkle it over my food because it's kind of spicy and you don't want to, have your greens too spicy. Especially since, the boys eat with me, I don't want it too spicy. I can take a lot of heat, but the boys can't, so. Yes? Okay, I'll clean it up. Go get a paper towel. Clean it up for me, please. You're my assistant. You're supposed to help me do stuff like that. No, just grab one and wet it. All right. Now all of that's cooking down. Look, now you want some free advertisement, Ola? Y'all like my shirt? It's the grace of God for me. Y'all visit Ocean Boutique. Put your address on there, Ola. And this is not even a paid sponsorship either. Now, Slap Your Mama, it is hot. It is hot. Because it's actually made, it's made in Louisiana. Walker and Sons, I guess those are the people that made it. But it's Villa Platte, Louisiana. That's where it's come from. Ola, put your address to www.oceanboutiquems.com. Put your physical address on there also. Y'all go out and support my sister, Ocean Boutique. She's on 1915 Mission 66, Suite D. You can't miss it. She's right there on the corner. Great prices. And for y'all fellas that want to buy your wife something, go to Ocean Boutique. I have bought many Happies and Just Because from Ocean Boutique. Prices are very reasonable. You can't beat the prices. Can't beat the prices. And if you don't feel like going and shopping, guess what? You can go online and have it shipped. And the thing that I love about Ocean Boutique and Ola is that when you buy something, you get it fast and quick and in a hurry. You don't have to wait 3, 4, 5 days or a week. Next couple of days, you're going to receive it. All right, I got my pot set. Let me show y'all my pot again. Now it looks, watch out for another second, folks. Hey, Jasmine. Now it looks greasy, as y'all can see. It looks a little greasy, but once you add your water in, it's going to distribute all of that Crisco within the pot.
Hey, Jasmine.
Now, I've been cooking this on medium heat, so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to turn the heat up because I'm about to add my water, and I want it to start boiling. And I'm almost done prepping my pot. It's just that simple. Just that simple. I got my ham hocks. They're already done. I'm about to throw them in the sink. I'm going to rinse them off again. I got my greens sitting in the sink. They're ready to go. About to add my water to my pot. And we're going to be good to go. Step down 1 second, please. How's everybody doing today? Pray that y'all having a good day so far. It's cold outside. I went out earlier this morning and it was like 28 degrees. All right, I'm gonna turn my pot up, turn it up on high. Hey, Vera, how you doing? I'm gonna fill up my pot about maybe right up under halfway. There we go. I'm gonna leave a little water to the side because once it starts boiling, you can kind of eye it. Too cold. Oh, I'm happy to have a day off too, Frank. All right, so got the heat up on high. I'm gonna get that to boiling. I'm gonna rinse off my ham hocks. So what do y'all have planned for this weekend? Somebody, y'all talk back to me. And let me show y'all something. I don't know about anybody else, but I love ham hocks, y'all. I'm just a country boy. I've been trying to get delivered from pork, but it ain't working. I keep going back to it. But let me show y'all these ham hocks. Y'all not gonna believe how huge this ham hock is. Look at how huge this ham hock is. Look how huge this ham hock is, y'all. Ain't that beautiful? Ain't that beautiful? And this is just about as big as my head, y'all. I'm gonna be eating good this evening, y'all. It's a huge ham hock. So it's already been cooked. I'm gonna rinse it off. my pot getting ready to boil. Now that I've added my water into my pot, give that a good stir. Now the last thing I'm gonna add, as far as seasonings wise, I got that ham hock. That ham hock came from Kroger. The last thing I'm gonna add to my pot is just white sugar. How much? I don't know. Just however much you want to add to it. Because especially, thing about it is with collards, sometimes they can be a little bitter. But you just add as much as you want to it, to your taste. Now me, I've been doing this for quite a while, so I kind of know how much to put based off of what it looks like. Yes, Godmother, I put sugar in my greens. That balances, for me, that balances out a lot of the other seasons that I put in there, and it kind of puts that bitter taste out of your greens. It just takes that recipe to that next level. And guess what, y'all? I'm almost done preparing my pot for my greens. And I've done all of this before I've even put my greens in the pot. I've been cooking for a long time, and before I met my wife and I would cook greens, I never put sugar in my greens. Angel, mother-in-law, those of y'all that are family that are on here, I learned that little added technique from Aunt Baby, my wife's great aunt. She was one of the best cooks I've ever, outside of along with my both of my grandmothers, awesome, amazing cook, and she would put a little sugar in her greens, and I picked that up from her. All right, my pot is starting to boil. And I'm almost finished with my pot. I've got all the seasonings in that I'm gonna use, that I'm gonna put in there. I'm just waiting for my pot to start boiling, because the technique that I've learned is that when your water is boiling, and you're cooking a lot of greens, it helps to shrink them down quickly. Because the thing about it is, you want all of your greens to cook evenly. You don't, because Lexi, hey Lexi, what's going on? You want your greens to cook evenly throughout the whole pot. So what I do is I turn my pot up on high, and I get my water to boiling. That way, it quickly shrinks the greens down, so you can put all your greens in the pot at the same time, so they can cook evenly. All right, so what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna add my ham hocks. And one thing that Vera Muddia, oh, she could really cook. I mean, she would come out of her room, go into the kitchen, and 20 minutes later, there's a feast in the kitchen. I don't know how she did it, but she did it. Well, they used to blanch their greens back in the day. We don't see a lot of that old style cooking anymore. My grandmother, she raised her greens in the garden, and she would pick them and she would blanch her greens. For y'all young folks, that's pre-cooked. wouldn't cook them all the way, but she would kind of pre-cook them, put them in the freezer, and that way when you want to cook them, you already got them in bags, already clean, pre-cooked in the freezer. Now, what I do with my ham hock is that I like to slice the outer layers of the skin of the ham hock all the way around. That way, when I get ready to eat, or if I don't want the whole ham hock, I've already sliced it and broken that skin. And sometimes, depending on how long you cook it, it will cook apart. Now this is a large ham hock. What's up, Terry? Let me show y'all this ham hock again. This is a ham hock, as y'all can see, and you can see where it's so big. I cut ridges in the ham hock right here. This is why I just cut the skin maybe a ½ inch down, and that way when it cooks, it may separate. And if you want to fix like portions, you don't have to worry about trying to cut it after it's been cooked. It'll separate in the cuts. Y'all look at that. Ain't that beautiful? Ain't that beautiful? I'm gonna put that in my pot because I like to put my meat in the bottom of the pot. Got my meat in the bottom of the pot, and I'm gonna and let me tell y'all something else. One thing that I learned from both of my grandparents is when you're cooking, you clean the kitchen as you go. You don't cook in a dirty kitchen. You clean as you go. You put that lid on that. I'm gonna take this off and stay in the pot. Yeah, I use smoked turkey too, Angel, but I'm just I'm doing my country greens today. Let me show y'all my pot. I don't want to fog up my camera, but y'all see that? That's my water with my ham hocks boiling. Yeah. So what I'm going to do next is come over here to the sink. And you want to make sure you wash your greens good. There's nothing worse than cooking some greens and you haven't cleaned them and you get grit or sand. So I usually clean my greens about 2-3 cycles. I fill up the sink with water. Let me show you how I clean my greens. Cleaning your greens is a must. Nothing worse than having a pot of greens and you get ready to sit down and you eat and you tasting sand. So what I typically do, let me switch this camera around, is that I got my greens soaking in water right here. And what you want to do is once your greens have soaked in the water, I got a double-sided sink. So I transfer my greens from one side to the other side. And what you want to do, a technique that I found out that works, is that when you're transferring your greens from one side to the other, after they've sat in the sink for a while, try not to stir up the water, because what happens is when your greens sit in the water for a while, the sand and dirt settles to the bottom of the sink. Settles to the bottom of the sink. So, you happy? So it settles to the bottom of the sink. Yeah, you learn your lesson real quick when you gotta cooked a pot full of sand. So when I transfer the greens to the other side, I give them one more rinse. Cold water. Give them one more rinse. Okay, that's good, Chloe. Thank you. I give them one more rinse. And now we're ready to add them to the pot. I usually add a bowl at a time. So y'all can see I got my pot boiling right here. Yeah, Lisa, you can use I don't know if it's Lisa or Derek, but you can put salt in your water, and you can also use vinegar as well. So what I'm gonna do now is just start. Okay, it's Lisa. What's going on, Lisa? How you doing? I'm gonna start adding my greens to the pot. Fill up that pot. You want to cover it up. And I got my stove on high. And one side note, you don't want to cook it on high the whole time. I just got it on high so that I can quickly add in my greens so they can all cook evenly. So they're gonna cook enough. It usually takes a couple minutes. You want to watch it when you got your lid on your pot and it's cooking down. As it shrinks down, you want to add your greens to it. That doesn't take long. Yep. All right. We're good, Lisa. We're good. All right, and that's basically it. So what I'm gonna do is I probably got about, I use this size bowl. I just added one full bowl on top of my meat and my water. I'm gonna let it boil down, and I just keep adding bowls. I probably got about maybe 5 bowls worth in my sink of greens. But once you cook them down, they're gonna shrink all the way down. Anybody that knows anything about greens, when you're cooking greens, they're gonna shrink down. I've got about 6 bunches. And the thing about this process here is with that stove being on high, you wanna see how quick it shrunk down. And now that I see that it shrunk down, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get another bowl, add it on top. Just want to keep adding as it shrinks down. Just want to keep adding the greens. At this point, you don't want to walk away from your stove because it's on high. You don't want your meat at the bottom of the pot. You don't want it to stick to the bottom of your pot. So you got to do this pretty quickly. So as that's cooking down, I'm just filling my bowl back up and replenishing the pot as it shrinks down. And as it's boiling down, I'm just standing by, waiting to add more greens to it. And clean as you go. My grandmother taught me, don't cook in a dirty kitchen. All right, so I'm gonna keep doing that until all my greens are in my pot. Once I get my last bowl of greens in my pot, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna turn it down on low and let it cook maybe an hour and a half, depending on how tender you want your greens, 2 hours, It's your business. You do what you want to do. It's your greens. And then what I'm gonna do is um, once that cooks down, maybe the last 30 minutes, I'm gonna throw a jalapeno pepper on top of the greens. I'm not gonna cut it, slice it. I'm just gonna throw it whole um, on top of the greens and let it cook down. And I typically like to pull that out and eat it with my greens. I just like spicy. Yeah, I'm cooking some cornbread. I think I'm gonna do some hot water cornbread today. Some fried cornbread, cornbread on the stove. I like cornbread on the stove. There's something about my grandmother, my mother's mother used to always cook her cornbread on top of the stove in a cast iron skillet. I got a cast iron skillet, so I think I'm gonna fry some cornbread. I'm cooking my collard greens. I got my ham hocks. Gonna cook some sweet potatoes. Gonna cook some cornbread, and I'm gonna cook a sour cream pound cake. And this is just a normal weekend for us. I'm just a country boy that likes to eat and likes to cook. Yeah, I mean, after we finish, when I get my greens on the stove, Chloe and I, this is my sous chef, we're gonna do a pound cake. I've been showing her how to cook pound cake, so eventually I'm gonna leave it up to her to be the cake person. You okay with that? This my helper out here, y'all. This the boss lady. See what she thinks she's the boss. Come on, Angel, come on over for dinner. All right, thank y'all for joining Country Boy Cook. I'm gonna try to do more videos and of when I cook some things. I think the next I'm waiting for my mother-in-law. She's fasting this month, so I'm waiting for her to finish her fast so I can cook my oxtails. So we can eat those together. My wife doesn't really eat oxtails, so I like to cook, and I like for people to eat with me when I cook. So Bishop Willis, you're more than welcome. But yeah, probably the next video I'll do is my Jamaican style oxtails. That's probably what I'll do next. So thank y'all for joining me. If y'all enjoyed this video, please share this video on Facebook. Like the video. I'm gonna try to be doing more of this. Yes, ma'am. Yes, mother. Yes, godmother. I said oxtails. Doing some oxtails, Jamaican style oxtails. Yeah, so that's gonna be my next video. Let me get back to my greens so I can turn this pot down because it's brewing, as y'all can see. Thank y'all for joining us. Till the back row.
Bye.
We'll see y'all next time.
I'm cooking with Hicks family.
Yeah, cooking with the Hicks family. Bless y'all. Y'all have a blessed day. Love y'all too. All right, Lisa.